Week 5 is behind us, and it was a crazy one with the Cardinals being quite possibly the worst team in football and Emeka Egbuka being the next Justin Jefferson. This is Stat Chasing.
Pat Fryer Helmo.
This is why I'm hot.
Anita Handjob.
Fix your sight.
Jamar. Alpha play chase.
Are you kidding me? Kadarius Toney?
You can't handle the heat.
It looks like we're finally Piss Boys. You're right.
Well, that was a pretty fun week 5, Drico. I think it was back in week 1. I was DMing Pat and we were talking about who were the worst teams in the league. And I said something about, I think the Cardinals actually are like sneakily in contention to be the worst team in the league. And he said, no, they're not the worst team in the league. Why do you think that? It's like, I mean, they barely handled the Saints, and the Saints are, supposed to be utterly devoid of any chance of being a serious team. And the Cardinals have vindicated me with like the funniest game that I've watched in the NFL for a long time. I mean, it was one of the reasons I'm not a huge college football fan is I don't love the funny games, like where there's just so many mistakes where you're like, all right, this is unserious. I feel like you're disrespecting my time, And the Cardinals were fully disrespectful of everyone's time who spent any amount of time watching that game. That was a truly hilarious one.
Yeah, it's bizarre because like I feel like, you tell me if you disagree, I feel like if you replayed that game 100 times, the Cardinals win like 98 of them, like a disgustingly high percentage. But they fumbled the bag. They absolutely fumbled the bag. You had like 2 bizarre fumbles, like the one where the guy, like the Mercado, is like literally about to score, but the game well out of reach, fumbles it over the goal line. Guy picks off Cam Ward, somehow getting up untouched. He fumbles it, and it's a touchdown.
I feel like there were other spots too where it's like this could have been so much worse. So I do agree with you directionally. Like you replay that game 100 times, the Cardinals win a lot of those when you replay them. But I think the thing that makes the Cardinals this season is that it's going to be really hard for us to, we might think like, oh yeah, they win 98 out of 100 of those. They replay them. And we think that. But in real life, there's just so many crazy ways that they will find to botch things that seem unbotchable, where it's like, actually, they only win 70. Yeah, they win 70 out of 100.
What you're saying is every happy family is the same, but every unhappy family is bad in their own way. Whereas like if you play those 70, they just handle business, but 30 they find all these random unique ways, or like 1 in 100 things, but they somehow find a way to come up with new 1 in 100 ways.
Beautifully put. Yeah, that's exactly it. You hit it on the button. But we don't need to rag on the Cardinals too much. There are, I feel like
there's other victims.
There's other victims. A lot of weeks I feel like the quarterback chart is like one of the ones I'm the least interested in. But this week I feel like there's some pretty good stuff I want to dive into. So let's pull up the quarterback chart.
Yeah, we've got some shakeup. And so I guess we're only going to show this quarterback chart very briefly, just to show how bad Cooper Rush is. Where I feel like this is the Hyde Cooper Rush game, where you don't get him to drop back too many times, even though you're getting your butt kicked. And then even against probably some pretty soft defenses at the end in garbage time, still not like throwing it down the field. Just really, really bad stuff. So we can get into this, but I feel like the Ravens' skill position players are pretty unplayable, while Cooper Rush is the quarterback. Like you just can't make a living from 21 Cooper Rush dropbacks in a game.
And I mean, I know the Texans' defense is good, but like the Texans dropped a 40 burger on you. Like you would expect more dropbacks than,
Yeah.
So I feel like it's probably not a fantasy friendly spot while Lamar is gone. The funny thing is Lamar has like a relatively small number of dropbacks as well when he's on the chart. It's just because he is supplementing those with Lamar rush attempts. And it turns out a Lamar rush attempt is pretty valuable. We saw them try to replace those Lamar rush attempts with you got Keaton Mitchell basically in there as like what if instead of our quarterback doing that, we like split it up so our quarterback couldn't pass the ball, but he like did the passing stuff just as like out of a semblance of duty, and then Keaton Mitchell, you do the Lamar rushing stuff. We could cobble that together, right? And that's unfortunately no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I feel like they just decided like, hey, we're not going to win games without Lamar back at quarterback. Like we're playing the game because we're obligated to, but we're onto a Lamar week whenever that comes again.
Yeah, not to take away from all the other injuries they had. It was the different like ways you could slice the Ravens' injury woes was pretty funny. I heard a bunch of different really fun stats about it. Like, I believe the Ravens were missing of all the players the Ravens were missing, they combined for 20 Pro Bowl appearances. So that's a lot. They also
accounted for $160 million or something like that.
Yeah, 100 or I think it was 97 million of cap hit this year. It was just some absurd, Anyway, the Ravens are the walking wounded right now, and I mean, shoot, at this point, you're like 1 to 2 losses away from it might be truly a lost season, like no hope of making the playoffs, which is crazy because coming into the season with a healthy roster, I would say they were probably the favorite to make the Super Bowl, or at the very least, like top.
Right,
2.
when they were kicking ass against the Bills, we were like, okay, these guys, this is the year for the Bills.
Well, and I think they were before the season. I think they were the Vegas odds favorite too. So it's like, it's pretty wild how much injuries can shake stuff up. Speaking of injuries shaking stuff up, a quarterback that has basically taken the Lamar spot on the chart with Lamar out, Sam Darnold. Now, granted, he's not. The difference between Sam Darnold and Lamar Jackson is while Lamar also has a small number of dropbacks per game, which is what is preventing Sam Darnold from being a total smash for fantasy. He's very, very efficient. It's kind of like how Russ Wilson was early days in Seattle, right? Super efficient, not a lot of volume, which is what Lamar does too, except his volume can sometimes be higher, and a lot of the times the only reason it's low is because he did so much on the ground. So Darnold's not adding on the ground, but he's been really, really good. And you got one of the best, I think, games of the season so far from overall quality of quarterback play in the Seahawks and Bucs game. And so you get this great game out of Darnold. You also get a really good complementary game out of Baker that makes for a super fun game. A bunch of really fun stats from this game, but I believe there was only one fewer touchdown pass than there was total incompletions in this game. Like, these guys were just absolutely dealing. Baker on pass attempts greater than 10 yards down the field, I believe was 9 for 11 for 226 yards and 2 touchdowns, just like absolute scorched earth levels of efficiency. And it's showing up on the chart. Like, Baker is one of the better pocket passers for fantasy that you could play. He's one I'm super interested in going forward. I think it only gets better from here. You get Chris Godwin getting healthier. You get Mike Evans back eventually. You get Egbuka developing in what's already been meteoric rise to his rookie season. But yeah, curious on if you have anything to add on those guys I've touched on so far.
I think when we go through the receiver stuff, we should go in depth on Egbuka and Godwin. I think there's some interesting stuff there. But I agree with you that was a very, very efficient game of passing play. A lot of money made in that game in tournament and DFS tournaments. Other one I guess not as exciting, but kind of struck me was that Dillon Gabriel, like he's actually played better. I guess we only have one game of sample here, but he actually played a good bit better than Flacco. And the drop back count. Are you hearing a weird vibrating sound in it?
Let me.
Oh, it left. It left. Whatever that is, it did it.
Okay, yeah, it may be my mic. Is it back or is it gone?
Yeah. Literally, as soon as you unmuted, it came back.
Okay.
So let me riff on my Dillon Gabriel spiel for a little bit. So Dillon Gabriel, he came in at pretty close to a 7 adjusted yards per attempt, and you can see down there that Joe Flacco is below 4. His dropbacks per game a little bit lower than Flacco's average, but pretty in line with where Flacco was once they started getting Judkins going. And so, to me, I guess we have to see how it's the first game in his first start, Gabriel's first start in his rookie year, and a lot of that productivity actually went to Njoku, who we kind of speculated was the Njoku kind of trade showcase game, but pretty encouraging overall to me anyway. On my thesis that cheap Browns would be pretty important for the season. I was definitely overall encouraged there.
Yeah, I think you have to be happy with what you saw against a Vikings defense is no slouch of a defense. So it was definitely a tougher first matchup for him. So I think you have to be encouraged there. Overall, feel relatively positive there. Only one game of sample, and we saw Flacco put up single good game, but. So I'm going to be interested to see if it continues for Gabriel, because the coaching staff is already saying stuff like Shedeur is going to get his chance too, which I feel like that's not the messaging I would go with after at the very least, like call it a decent game from your rookie in his first start. Like give the guy a little support, man. But anyway, yeah, decent stuff from Gabriel. Not really a guy that I don't think you can really.
No, you're not playing on
fantasy. You're just happy about what it means.
You're never starting Dillon Gabriel unless you're in true dire straits. You're never going to play him in DFS. Like you're not going to draft him in the dog bowl, even in 12-man draft. But you kind of leave the light on for some of these skill position players. We're still I still think we probably need something to happen with Njoku for Fannin to really break out. He's been giving solid tight end scores, but we need something there. And actually, I did have something to add on Darnold. One thing that we kind of like had seen in Darnold's game previously, and kind of when he had a late season meltdown, was just taking a lot of sacks, like dealing with pressure very poorly. He's only got, it's like an 11% pressure to sack ratio, which is pretty solid. So like he's been handling pressure pretty well too, which is good to see for Darnold. Yeah,
I mean, if you want to make it's not a perfect 1-to-1 comparison, but Geno last year in that same offense. Now, granted, they upgraded the offensive line just a little bit since then. They drafted Zabel in the first round there, but Darnold in the same offense, 11.3% pressure to sack ratio. Geno was, I believe, around 15% last year. And then now at the Raiders, I think Geno's up around 25%. So it's pretty bad there. So Darnold looking pretty good, and then the closest comparison you could have for him.
I guess Seahawks, the other point is Seahawks doing a good job of getting the most out of their quarterbacks.
Yeah, I definitely think that's the case.
We have an IT suggestion here. If your Bluetooth dongle is plugged into the back of your computer, try moving it to another port.
Yeah, I think the tech troubleshooting will probably just be me muting in between talking. So apologies for whatever hum is coming through there.
Yeah, sorry. My apologies. I was if it worked, it would have been great. We would have been just off the races. But yeah, I guess this is not a you're not getting NPR quality here. You're getting a pretty free stream with very high quality information. Focus on the information. And then I guess the last note I had here is we can't really finish up the quarterback section without talking about how fantastic Maye played. One thing I note is that that a lot of the peripherals on their offensive line is much better this year. So obviously that's a big revamp. And then obviously we like Maye. Maye is in play. In all formats for the rest of the season. I get the challenge is, or the more interesting conversation to me is, how do you play that? Do you play like Maye naked? Do you buy into? I know you're always partial to Hunter Henry, single stack, but then do we buy into the Diggs breakout? That's 2 weeks in a row where he's been above 100 yards.
Yeah, I think I'm at the very least willing to kind of roll with Diggs here and see if it's sticky. You know, there's part of me where it's like, oh, this guy was just able to really get up for the revenge game. Like, if there's anyone where a revenge game is gonna matter to them, it's Steph Diggs.
The pettiest receiver somehow in the NFL.
I don't know if you noticed this. He was operating a lot closer to like 3 seasons ago Diggs when he was on Buffalo, when he's more operating in like all areas of the field, not like just the, hey, I'm the short underneath guy. He was winning deep. He was winning intermediate. He was there for the short routes, and he looked great, man. He looked really good. So that would be an absolute godsend for the Patriots, like having a quality number one receiver that can get open and win in all areas of the field. The other comments I had about Drake Maye is, if you watched him all last season, there were a lot of encouraging things, and there was a lot of stuff where you're like, all right, there's still going to be some growing pains with this guy. There were warts on the frog last year, and it really was. I mean, the comp coming out was Josh Allen, and it really was reminiscent of Josh Allen, where, you know, hand up, for Josh Allen's first year of his career, I kept telling anyone who asked me about Josh Allen in Dynasty, like, oh, you sell. You got to absolutely get out, because the Josh Allen shares go to zero on a long enough timeline. Like, guy who's horribly inaccurate, you know, can't complete 60% of his passes. Like, sure, he looks fun, but like, this goes to zero. You know, like, we've seen this before.
And so a Josh Allen comp. So Josh Allen was so bad in college, so inefficient early in his NFL career, that a Josh Allen camp is like, basically, this guy is ass, but he might like end up it might work out. So you don't want to see a Josh Allen comp, even though Josh Allen himself turned out fantastic.
So yeah, there's all those parallels though. The rookie season, like, all the physical traits are there, like the big game hunting, the like absolute freakish arm talent, the scrambling ability, like, you know, bigger size guy, like, has the athleticism and power to be able to, you know, we saw it in this game against the Bills where he's shrugging off defensive linemen to like make throws and stuff that there's just not very many people that are even capable of physically doing that. But I feel like with Josh Allen, he gets a full first year to start as a rookie, right? And there's still a lot of the growing pains. Even into Josh Allen's second year, I was still on the train of like, if you got Josh Allen in Dynasty, you sell that, like, sell the top, like, get out while you can, you know, flip this for a win, you know, and live to fight another day. I feel like Drake Maye is speed running the Josh Allen career arc, where I'm not saying that Drake Maye is already as good as Josh Allen, but I mean, where they are located on the chart would have you believe that they're probably a lot closer than people would tell you. But I mean,
Drake Maye's been fantastic. We're 5 games in to a sophomore year, and he's playing very, very strong. Obviously, we're coming off a primetime game where he just put his nuts on the table and won the game in Buffalo with like sick throws. So it's kind of easy to over-index to that because that's what we just have seen. But he's been overall fantastic this year. Like I'm pretty sure almost every game, he's maybe taken a little bit too many sacks, but been fantastic overall. We're very encouraged. Like I said, Maye is in play.
Yeah, and I'd be concerned about the recency bias if it wasn't meshing with my prior. If I wasn't already like, yeah, this guy has the arm to make these crazy throws. And the things that are encouraging to me is like he's been consistently making better decisions, where in his rookie season there were some bad decisions still. There were some things just like, oh, okay, we could have figured that one out better. But here I feel like the thing that's really fun, there are some quarterbacks where the way that they process and like move through their progression, you can really like visibly see just the way that their helmet, like you can watch their helmet kind of like click as they process through the field, like just they're changing where their range of motion. They're like, and it's like so intentional. It's just really fun as a viewer to like see it so obviously. And I feel like you get that with Maye, where you see him go through this progression, and so many times it feels like he's getting to the right answer, and a lot of times they're difficult downfield throws too that he's getting to. So I'll stop gushing about Drake Maye, but I think I'm just gonna probably be perpetually overweight Drake Maye this season, as I hope he's en route to, being in the top 3 quarterbacks overall drafted next season. Like the Drake Maye ceiling is the number 1 quarterback overall for fantasy, and that is like pretty clear to me.
That is a bold statement, but certainly makes sense. I just want to react to one thing we had in the chat here. Is the bottom right orange circle hypothetical QB? Yes, there are no quarterbacks with exactly 4 yards per attempt, 50 dropbacks, and 100 rushing yards a game. And that's for scale. Like, so that when you look at the bubbles, like let's say you look at Justin Fields, and then you look at the size of the 100 yards, like, oh, he's pretty close. He's probably like 60, 70 yards. Then you look Joe Flacco, he's probably like, that's like probably 15. That's the point of that little bubble in the bottom right. And so moving on to our running backs here. Zoom out so we can see the chart. And so I guess I really only want to talk about things that are different. Like, I don't want to say, oh yeah, Jonathan Taylor smashed again. Like, I feel like that's kind of like a waste of everyone's time. The first kind of note, if I'm starting up the top, is so Tony Pollard. We kind of noted that he was getting like this elite snap rate and usage. That appears to be coming down. So he was earlier in the year, he was like a 90% snap rate. In week 5 with Spears' return, he was down to 75%. And I want to take it with a grain of salt, but the coaching staff said, hey, we're going to ramp Spears up. I'm old enough to remember last year when the entire year the coaches said, yeah, we got to get Tyjae Spears more touches. We got to get him more touches. And then like they didn't do it. But I still think this is probably trending something to like a 60 to 65% snap rate for Tony Pollard, which, given how poor the offense has been, like that, I feel like that's like the music is slowing and it's about to stop for Pollard and his startability in fantasy.
Yeah, I push back a little bit there. I think you're correct in that his snap rate will come down. I just don't think it does too much for what he is in fantasy, because he's been a running back getting a huge amount of touches in a really poor offense, and not very many of those touches are high value touches. That's just kind of the nature of the offense. They're not getting him green zone touches because they just aren't there. And then he doesn't get a ton of the passing game stuff. They just haven't been throwing to running back a ton. He's running a lot of routes, you can see here. So I do think the most harmful thing to him will be that Spears probably eats into some of those routes. But I think from the standpoint of like, oh, Tony Pollard's losing carries, I don't think that's really going to manifest in a way that matters for fantasy. It's like, oh, wow, Tony Pollard loses 3 carries a game. It's like, yeah, those are maybe worth a grand total of like half a fantasy point. It just isn't. It isn't worth all that much just because the team is so bad. So I think you still basically are going to have what you have in Tony Pollard, maybe just like 90% of previous Tony Pollard, which was just like relatively unexciting. Like you're really hoping that the Titans find themselves in a game where they're able to be more competitive and get a little touchdown equity for him. But that just seems pretty unlikely. And so I think it would matter more if they had been throwing him the ball more. And so, you're losing a bunch of those high value touches. There just weren't very many high value touches in the first place. So you're losing low value stuff. So it's like, at the end of the day, it's probably, it's a hit, but I think it's a small hit. He just wasn't, wasn't
it's a
smashing
small
with
hit
the volume.
out of a small pie. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Where like you're probably getting a steady Eddie 10 points by starting him. It's probably 7 now.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to – I am more of the mind that Tyjae Spears is just not really a thing because they haven't, fool me 1 time, shame on you. Fool me 2 times, can't get fooled again. Fool me 6 times, you're the only person.
Well, he might only let's say he gets 5 carries a game. You're talking about let me have a look here. You're talking about going from I want to say it's like 20 carries to 15. So Tony Pollard 14 carries, Tyjae Spears 4 in week 5. So you get let's say it's a very, very marginal uptick, and this kind of thing kind of stabilizes at 6 carries for Spears, 12 rush attempts for Pollard, and then he loses a lot of the routes as well. Like I don't know, man. Like on like a bad offense, like when I said like his startability is like probably not going to be somebody you want to start in fantasy. Like I feel like that's a pretty reasonable thing to say.
Yeah, I don't see Spears increasing all that much more, just because they've never.
You don't think he can increase from 4 carries to 6?
I mean, even in this game, like we still get 3 targets for Pollard, 3 receptions with Spears back.
You just said you think where Spears will increase his role is probably be in the routes and the receiving stuff.
Right, but I mean, like, I still think you're going to get, like, Pollard's not going to all of a sudden get 0 targets in the receiving.
No. But maybe it's only 1 target. And you're looking at 12. Anyway, I think the chat is demanding that we move on. I think maybe we might have to agree to disagree on this one. So my next note, if you think it's getting more exciting than Tony Pollard talk, I've got bad news for you. One thing that I think this is interesting. I think it's interesting to talk about the Chargers with Hampton going on IR. I think I think there's value in kind of talking about who the value piece is, and I think that player is clearly Hassan Haskins, where they had the same amount of snaps in the game, but Haskins got snaps when Hampton was still healthy. It was a trailing game script, which especially when Hampton was out, which vastly in theory vastly prefers Vidal. And then Vidal got some snaps when Trey Lance was in the game, when they were just putting the JV players out there, and Haskins were like, okay, you're too important. We're going to rest you. I have a difficult time in kind of is it 70% of Hampton usage. Is it 60? Is it 80%? But I think Haskins is a very, very clear add this week, and potentially even like a good play in DFS.
Yeah, no, Haskins is we're lockstep on this one. Haskins is like the clear add over Vidal. Vidal will probably get some attention because of the slappy fun narrative of Kamani Vidal from last season, where gosh, wouldn't it be fun if Kamani Vidal got there this season. But yeah, I mean, the team, everything that the team has done, has all indicated that Haskins is the one ahead of Vidal. And I mean, the Chargers are going to run the ball. I mean, they showed us early in the season that they were happy to be a really high PROE team. I still think there's going to be a lot of value in that running back position. So Haskins is a really strong waiver add. And we're to the point of the season now where it's like, what are you saving your fab for? There's really at this point, it's like, sure, keep a little bit behind for, making some maneuvers later in the year, but like this is going to be one of the better spots you get on the waiver, for the rest of the season. So I wouldn't be shy about dumping a bunch, especially if you need short-term starts here. If you're pretty stacked at running back, it's not really it's more like a price enforced spot where, I might only do, 20% of my total budget or something there. But if it's something where you need a start, like you can just be very aggressive on it.
And the Chargers play the Dolphins this week as well. So and we just saw the Dolphins give up they just bent over and they spread cheek as a current college quarterback put it. They gave it up to Rico Dowdle. So I think Haskins is probably in a pretty good spot this week as a spot start. The next one I have a note on, and this is kind of like a little rewind where Michael Carter was Hassan Haskins is the Michael Carter of week 5. Michael Carter, he led the team with 18 rush attempts. He had 17 routes, 61% snap share. The Mercado is probably going in the Mr. Beast field goal cannon after the fumble. I actually just saw in news that the head coach Gannon, the Cardinals fined Gannon for publicly berating the Mercado after the fumble. Like bizarre. Anyway, I think Michael Carter, pretty good play until Benson is back.
Yeah, he doesn't get quite as juicy a matchup as the Titans were last week. They play the Colts this next week. But yeah, if you think that the NFL fining Gannon $100,000 for
it was the Cardinals.
No, it was the NFL.
Oh, it was the NFL. Oh, I thought it was the Cardinals. Okay.
But if you think that is going to make Gannon, just forget and forgive DeMercado, you got another thing coming. Like, if anything, look out for an inactive Amari DeMercado this next week.
Right.
Not actually, but like Michael Carter is set up to have a really strong role. So he's already well and gone off waivers, but like he's a good start again. But agree with you here where it's very similar, where Haskins is like the spot start to pick up if you need one this week. You get the great matchup against the Dolphins. Made Rico Dowdle look like one of the best runners in the league. Like, and legit, like, I don't mean like, oh, well, he compiled 200 yards, so, that was great. It's like, no. Like, if you watch the game, Rico looked really good, man. We were talking about it in the Leg Up Rankings chat, and he had already, I think he was well over 100. He was like at 130 yards or something at this point when we're talking about what a good game he's having. And then he just absolutely chunks them for another, like, I can't remember how long it was. It was like a 40-yard run or something. And he breaks, I think he had 4 forced missed tackles on that single run. It's just awesome stuff, like looking like a true stud. So, yeah, that was really fun to watch. But anyway.
I really do think that is because of how bad the Dolphins, and I'm trying to get into like the usability or like useful information. That is how bad the Dolphins defense is. Because like I remember there was one thing where they had Trevor Etienne on for a carry, and Etienne, he got 7 yards, but it was blocked yards where he was just like through the hole, like nobody there tackled immediately. That was a 7-yard carry. And then the Dolphins played the Jets last week in prime time, and up until the fumbles and the turnovers, the Jets were absolutely gashing the Dolphins on the ground as well. They do seem like a truly vulnerable team against the run.
I'm glad you brought up the Jets, because that was another team I wanted to highlight as far as if you're looking for teams that are actively bad at tackling, and so they're just creating more explosive plays and big plays because they're not capable of bringing down the ball carrier. If you watch the Jets-Cowboys game, like Ryan Flournoy has a 100-yard game. A bunch of that is because the Jets aren't capable of tackling. He's just breaking tackles out there and going for way more yardage than he should. Like against any other opponent, he has nowhere close to a 100-yard game. But the Jets are just letting him get yards after contact over and over and over. Same thing with Javonte Williams. That Javonte Williams 60-something yard run, if you go watch that back, a Jets defender takes out. There are 2 Jets defenders that could make the play within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, give or take. One of them is set up to take, to make the tackle. There's another defender that comes in and takes out his own man who's set up to make the tackle. He takes a terrible angle himself. He like kind of over pursues it, crashes into his own player. And now Javonte Williams, who had 2 opportunities to get tackled there, is all of a sudden looking at a bunch of green grass. It's like, well, the Jets are literally blocking themselves. And then downfield, I want to say it was the safety, takes another poor angle on it, and Javonte gets even more yards because of that. So it's like Jets and Dolphins, both really good targets, I would say, for running backs. Just if you can get to for the Jets, it was more of like second level that was causing them trouble. So if you have a player that can get to the second level on the Jets, look out. Like they're primed to give up really big plays.
I just want to clarify. It was the Cardinals, not the NFL, who fined Gannon. Like Adam Schefter's tweet says, Cardinals are fining head coach Jonathan Gannon.
Oh wow. Okay. I saw that it was the NFL. Interesting.
I still think the Gannon is like okay, you guys, you fucker cost me $100,000. Like you're not playing. But bizarre. The next note I had was about Kendre Miller. So he was up to a 42% snap rate. He actually led the team in carries. So he had the lead in Kamara in rush attempts. He had 10. And my other kind of like secondary note was like the Austin Eckler-ification of Alvin Kamara. His snap share, Kendre's snap share just up every week. I was it you who said last week or the week before, like Kendre is probably just the clear starter by the end of the year.
Yeah, and there have been Underhill reported that the Saints are interested in moving some of their veteran players by the deadline. Then
he did reply to that tweet. It's not Kamara. They can't move the contract.
Yeah, I don't know how much I believe that though. Like, if you're the Saints, like you're definitely open to moving him. I think there's for sure a chance that he get. If there's any suitor that would take him, they'd move him. I don't think it's particularly likely. We were hypothesizing that it might be Olave, which would be like truly the dumbest move you could do. Is that like that's the type of player you just don't trade. Like you take the win on that player, you just basically extend them as soon as you can extend them, and that's how you get the win there. not that you're flipping it for draft capital that, hopefully one day could maybe have a chance to be Olave, right? Like that's not how you play it. But yeah, Kendre definitely trending up. I think this will probably just be a pretty clear trend through the end of the season. There's now where Kendre is like a thing where, if you're watching this show, that's probably an encouraging thing to you. You probably are not super thrilled about Alvin Kamara. That's probably not someone you drafted a bunch of. But on the flip side, Ashton Jeanty is losing work, similar amount of work to Raheem Mostert that Kendre Miller is taking. Wild. So Mostert ends up with a 43% snap rate this game. Is like just when I thought that the Raiders were going to figure it out and lean into Jeanty as the engine of their offense after the breakout game, they find a way to just not do that. And it
just when I'm back in, they pull me back out.
Yeah, I think the Raiders are really interesting. There's like, you could spend a long time trying to play the blame game for what is the reason that the Raiders are bad. Is it the offensive line? Is it Geno? Is it the coaches? I think it's probably a little bit of all of the above. Geno is definitely playing like the worst version of Geno. And then I think that the coaching decisions and play calling and personnel decisions are certainly not helping. And then also the fact that your offensive line was already really bad, and then you lose your best offensive lineman in Kolton Miller. It's just all that compounds, and you get what the Raiders are, which is squarely in the bottom 5 teams in the NFL. They're hanging out down there with the Titans, the Saints, the Cardinals. Those are definitely, the worst teams in the league right now. So disappointing stuff. I think you're just going to have kind of tough sledding for Jeanty this season, where he has the ability to rookie year. Yep. He's got the ability to make the huge plays and go off, but he's just dragging some lead anchors behind him. So it's going to be tough for him.
Yeah, agreed. And using this as kind of a segue for our rookie watch. So I think Tuten, he's still a 22% snap rate. Harvey, 21% snap rate. But that's kind of marks, that kind of finishes the negative side. On the positive side, so Henderson, for all of our upset and worries, was up to a 50% snap rate on Sunday. Well, on Sunday night, he had 6 rush attempts for 3 targets, so 9 touches. And Bill, 51% snap rate, 14 rush attempts, and he actually had 12 routes versus the 13 for McNichols, so that's pretty good. Marks was people were upset because I know a bunch of people played Marks in Battle Royale stuff and maybe some DFS too, but he was still at a 41% snap rate, and that's with Damian Pierce getting 21% in a blowout. Zach, I just blew through all the rookies. Want to give you an opportunity to comment as well.
Yeah, the Tuten stuff. I mean, he was off the injury report this week, so before there was speculation that he could have been taking more snaps, but he's got that shoulder injury, so he's off the injury report last week. Still sees the low snap rate. I gotta wonder if it's because of the nature of the game, like how tight they were playing the Chiefs. Maybe they just wanted to lean on ETN there. The little bit of work that Tuten got, there was a play that didn't go for like any yards whatsoever, but Tuten gets the ball and nothing is blocked for him. There are 0 yards to be gained, but he bounces off like 3 different tacklers to still gain 0 yards. But it was just an example of like a really good, tough run from him. Again, doesn't actually net him anything, but I think it is encouraging for like, I can really see him carving out that role as the season progresses, where it's like, okay, this is the guy that is the best on our team at the short yardage stuff. And now that they've gotten rid of Tank Bigsby, I think that, the team could probably agree with that. because LaQuint Allen is certainly not that, and neither is ETN. So I think that might be the door to like the early Tuten stuff, that and like just really high efficiency, like forcing their hand. But ETN's still playing well enough that, I mean, even against a tough Chiefs defense, ETN was playing well enough where he was getting hard yards too. I don't know if you were watching all of that game.
ETN is good. ETN is good this year. And so
I think the Liam
terms of like a rookie breakout, like a veteran playing very well is a tough, it's a tough obstacle. But I still think the reason that we track these things, like I'm saying, it's only a 22% snap rate. We expect that to increase, and it's going to be tough to see how much it does increase with ETN playing so well. But probably I still think you get a usable fantasy starter out of Tuten, where it's like somebody who's going to project reasonably well by the end of the year.
Yeah, if you say you have Tuten in like a redraft league right now, or is he someone that you'd consider churning? Like, say that.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, say he's the worst player on your roster. Like, clearly, there's no one else you could cut for him. And you're debating picking up Hassan Haskins or keeping Tuten.
So this is like a short bench league, or maybe you're just if you're that stacked in the main event. I'm very jealous, but let's pretend that we're talking about a kind of a short bench home league. I think that it probably depends on the league you're in. A lot of the I know Tuten has enough of a profile that if somebody dropped him in my home league, he'd be there. There's no stashing him on, keeping him on the wire and picking him back up when something happens. Like, I think you gotta hold on to him. If he's if Tuten is like the worst player that you have, then you're probably pretty stacked at running back. So like, maybe you don't really actually need Haskins. I don't know. I'd be more inclined where, man, you really need to start this week. Like you're 1-4. You need to win this week. Your guys are on bye or injured or whatever. You got to pick somebody up. Then that's probably the scenario where you drop Tuten for Haskins.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't really think you cut Tuten for much. He's like he's the whole purpose of like what you're churning for and holding. The Harvey, I think that Harvey might have been just like a victim of game script where you ended up with more Tyler Bidet in there because they were trailing for so much of the game, which is a little disappointing where they're going back to Bidet, but they were down multiple scores against the Eagles, and having to come back. And so Bidet's getting a lot of the passing stuff. The Bill is the other one I wanted to comment on. I think the Bill breakout is here. I mean, the team. So it's not often that a team tells you explicitly the development curve of their rookie running back, right? Like the Jags aren't out here telling us like, oh, Tuten is really sick, but like we need to work on these things first and then we'll really deploy him. Dude, in week 1, the Commanders are telling us Bill is going to be our RB1, but we just need to get a little seasoning on him. Like the team is explicitly telling you this, like it doesn't get any easier than that. And here we are. It was week 5. They're doing direct snaps to Bill. Bill's like getting similar receiving game work as the pass catching back. Like, Chris Rodriguez is all but dusted. He's just in there for like literal breather back duties at this point. And Bill looks awesome. And they're designing stuff really intelligently to play to Bill's skills. Like, I don't know if you saw that run where he gets the edge there. They're doing so much to take advantage of the stuff that he does well. So that's always really encouraging when you see a team doing that, playing smart around their personnel. But I think it just wheels up for him at this point. Like going forward, you got to manage. You're just starting him every week at this point. Very, very exciting for him. He he really looks like he is getting the Brian Robinson role. So he's Brian Robinson with juice, and then I think he's consolidating a little more, probably due to the Eckler injury. Like if you don't get the Eckler injury, maybe the run out isn't quite this good. But we got the Eckler injury, and so I think you're going to get Brian Robinson plus this season, which is
he's getting
good.
He's getting almost all the carries and about half the routes. That's pretty good. I think that concludes us for the running backs. So, like I don't
yeah, we can move on. As you're going to the tight end chart, I'll just Derrick Henry I think is like well and truly toast. Keaton Mitchell's active and taking carries away from him. Justice Hill, it's not like Keaton Mitchell came and ate into the Justice Hill snaps either. It was out of the Derrick Henry stuff. And then they're still handing the ball to Derrick Henry down like 4 scores against it. Like, it's weird, man. It was like it was Make-A-Wish touches. It was like, don't worry, Derrick. We'll make sure that your stats don't look too bad. But like, I mean,
I read that as more just hiding at Cooper Rush. It was like,
yeah,
sucks.
Why don't you give it to Justice Hill then? Why don't you give it to like Keaton Mitchell? Like save your Derrick Henry miles. You don't have a ton of them left.
Yeah, you're right. That is odd. That is very bizarre.
I mean, do you want my take on it? I'm pretty sure that if the Ravens drop 2 more games, like Derrick Henry's moving at the deadline. Like there's no reason to keep that player on your roster.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And that's a very real risk at this point. Very, very real risk. And if you look at the next gen stats stuff, it's like Derrick Henry is kind of playing like he's not like this is as maybe not the right style comp, but the statistical comp would be Kenneth Walker.
Where I was just about to say Ken Walker.
He just is not making anybody miss in a phone boot. He's not like if you don't block yards, you will not get any yards. It's truly only when he gets into the open field is he making a difference at all. So if you can't get Derrick Henry into the open field, like you're in for a bad time. So I had pretty sparse notes on the tight ends. Obviously, we just had tight end week, so everybody got there except for Trey McBride apparently. But my notes on Trey McBride, the peripherals are still pretty strong. Like he's number 2 in targets and air yards among tight ends. He does have 254 air yards, so like 50 air yards a game. I really do think one of those kind of like big ass tight end games is coming from McBride. Like maybe I'm the only person in the world saying it at this point, but I think the underlying usage is still pretty strong, even if we're not getting the results.
Yeah, the problem with McBride is like the price that you paid for him, he's not going to get close to paying off because so much of that is predicated on separating so much from the rest of the position. And it's just that you're getting guys that went so much later that are pretty close to what he's doing. And so it's just not mattering this year. Part of it, I think, is that the Cardinals are just ass. Like Kyler's really bad. I mean, the Cardinals, there's a litany of problems with the Cardinals, but I mean, a big part of it is that you don't have a quarterback that is going to, let alone be a difference maker. Like he's probably above the Dalton line, but like only just, and so that's troublesome. I mean, it's basically a spot where the well-run organizations realize that you have to cut bait and do something, or you're going to end up treading water until you drown. But I think the Cardinals will happily drown. So bit of a bummer for Trey McBride. Not that he's like dead or unusable or anything.
I guess I still think he's probably the favorite to finish the year as the tight end 1. Like I would still get like that minus money on that. But it's going to be close enough that you're going to be disappointed is the most likely thing.
I don't know if I actually would bet it at minus money, because I think that between Tyler Warren And then I think you just might get enough of these games from Jake Ferguson while CD is still out, where he just accumulates enough where it's like it might not, his production drops down to earth, but then it's like, it didn't matter. I got so much production in these weeks while CD was gone. And even, CD's also going to have like that return to play slump where, hey, the guy's coming off a high ankle, which are notoriously detrimental for production, even when the player returns. So I would think that McBride's probably not like greater than 50% to be the tight end one. The Bowers injury is definitely helping his odds there, but yeah, it's not what you paid for. I mean, like if we were to redraft today, I'm probably not taking Trey McBride like earlier than the 4-5 turn. Probably like I'm taking him ahead of a bunch of the receivers that went there. But like,
yeah, that's pretty fair.
Yeah,
that's pretty fair. So, now my next note was on was Ferguson. So he's gotten 48 targets in 5 games, which is blowing my mind. It's breaking my brain.
Yeah, is that good for a tight end?
It's very good. I guess I do wonder how sustainable that is. Like, can the Cowboys, like, is it going to be like okay for their offense to just spam these short targets to a tight end? Like, is it like our defense is going to be like, oh, okay, you can do that. It's not going to work, or do they actually is like, okay, you know what, we're not going to let you do short targets to Ferguson anymore. We're chipping him at the line. We're like we're gonna make that throw hard for you, and we want you to beat us with what's the wide receiver 2 for the Cowboys again?
You mean not Pickens, Flournoy,
yeah,
or Tolbert?
Tolbert, yeah. We want you to beat us with Jalen Tolbert. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. That's pure speculation.
I mean, the thing in the past, they've made Ferguson work for stretches like this. So I wouldn't be surprised if this continues. Also, because it's the other thing is like the amount of like taking a guy away that a defense can do is directly related to how much a quarterback is willing to just say, fuck you, that's actually what I want to do anyway. So I don't really care that you're covering my guy. And of all the quarterbacks in the league that have that type of attitude, like, actually, I just want to throw it here. So that's what I'm doing. Dak is like far and away number one. He like every season that Dak plays that he is fully healthy, he like leads the league in big time throws. And so like this is a guy who is happy to fit it in the window and also like throw the fucking hospital balls, man. Like if you watch some of the deeper stuff that Ferguson gets, that's just like the seam routes where he's just running full speed into a safety that's just ready to take his head off. Like Dak cares very little about the safety of his pass catchers. He will just throw it up there and trust that they're going to make a play. And I mean, we've seen it with Ferguson too, where he'll go up there and just absolutely get obliterated, but he'll make those plays. So I think it's for the time being, you're just Ferguson's like a locked in every week starter. You probably reevaluate after Lamb is back, but even not like the first game he's back. Like it's basically I need you to make me see it before I'm going to change how I'm treating.
Yeah, that's fair. I really think like there's going to be stuff like tight ends just like running into him at the line and stuff like that. But you're right. Where if Dak if he really wants to throw that 3-yard air yard pass to Ferguson, he's just going to do it. So don't have too many other notes on tight ends. So I do see Fannon's actually 6th among tight ends for targets. I do think that a kind of breakout game is coming. I feel like we've been on the cusp of it with stuff like big plays coming back from injuries, the Njoku showcase game last week. I still feel like we're gonna get like a mini breakout from Fannin in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm reading the tea leaves that an Njoku trade's definitely on the menu. I don't think it's the most likely thing. I think it's more likely that Njoku stays on the team because the Browns definitely seem like they really like running that 12 personnel. But
I saw a random Twitter account where that was like, hey, I watched the tape. I fully believe that they're going to trade Njoku just because his attitude is so bad right now. That's just like absolutely bias for me, pure bias, where I see that I would benefit from it. I'm like, oh shit, yeah, like sign me up for that. But I don't know even why I mentioned it on this show.
I mean, if that were the only thing that was the basis for, oh, there's going to be an Njoku trade, then I would kind of brush it off. But it's something where there was consistent, drumbeat of that all off season.
Am I disconnected?
Oh, can you hear me?
Can you guys hear me, but not Sec?
I can hear you. Maybe you can't hear me.
Oh, I couldn't hear you.
Okay.
I couldn't hear anything, and I was worried about, like, at first I was hoping that the chat could hear you and you were talking, but then I got concerned that maybe you got cut off and I was just being quiet. Okay, everybody can hear everybody. I was just being quiet and it was just that dead air and me just like staring blankly at the camera. But I think what you said is it's not just a random guy. We also have an insider information or insider speculation at the start of the year. Like, we have kind of fundamentals where it's a contract year. It makes sense for them to move him. It's the end of his career, so maybe he doesn't want to do that at maybe the last year of his potential prime on kind of a dead end Cleveland team, where like there's a lot of things that make sense. Yeah, and then we don't. I guess maybe we don't necessarily. We need the Njoku trade for like the thermonuclear Fannin breakout, but we don't need it for him to still be a good fantasy play.
Yeah, absolutely. And not to take anything away from Njoku, had his best game in a while, like had some pretty good catches.
Yeah.
The one, I mean, I wanted to be kind there to Njoku before I totally rain on his parade here. He looked like the slowest player I've seen in the NFL in a while on that early screen, where they set up this beautiful screen and there's all this space, and then he gets the ball and he's just lumbering. And then there's another route too where he's running this route and it just is so painfully slow, man. So yeah, I mean, he's definitely. It did
seem like he was the primary read on a lot of the throws.
Yeah, I was
kind of puzzled, like, why are they doing this? Like,
yeah,
that feels like a trade showcase.
Yeah, no, I fully buy into that as well. You had a good note here that Hunter Long is a good tight end premium target because Brenton Strange went to IR. I think that, that's a very good shout, for FFPC.
Yeah.
If you're hurting at tight end, Hunter Long, you could definitely do worse.
I mean, he like there's different categories of waiver pickups. This is a guy who stepped into almost all of the routes at tight end once Strange went down. I don't think he's a target earner or anything like that. I don't think he's particularly good, but he's very likely to consolidate the routes, and tight end is a big part of the receiving game for the Jags. And then my last note on tight ends was Darren Waller actually had a 64% route rate. So like they're ramping him up, and his targets per run stuff was like kind of prime Darren Waller. So if he's healthy, he's in for a pretty strong year, I think.
Yeah, I was super wrong about my read on that. I thought,
Me
hey,
too.
first game back, like he gets the 2 touchdowns. People are overreacting. Like this is an old guy. He's gonna run like he only ran 28% of the routes last week. Like maybe he gets up to 50%. And when we're wrong and we have evidence that we feel is strong enough to suggest that, I'm ready to move on quickly. And so, yeah, Fannin or not Fannin, Waller looks like a really strong play going forward. So if you didn't add him because we poo-pooed him last week, sorry about that.
Yeah, so his targets actually didn't increase that much. He had 4 targets on the 36% rate, and then he had 5 on the 68%. But you watch him play, and it is like this guy is just dusting linebackers. Like he is like he's just getting wide ass open immediately. Like you need a defensive back to cover Darren Waller.
It was all in the first half.
Yeah,
I don't think he did anything in the second half. So I do wonder if it was something where it was just a mismatch type of thing where it's like you're saying, like, hey, you need a DB to cover this guy. And I wonder if that was like a halftime adjustment where, hey, we're not going to let Darren Waller get this mismatch anymore. And that kind of put the kibosh on that. It'll be interesting to see going forward. But I think that's all for the tight ends. We can move on to receivers here.
Yeah, ready to move on here. Yeah, ready to move on. And so my first note, I guess we have to talk about the cover boy, which is Egbuka. And so there's been a kind of raging debate about Egbuka going into this week. And I didn't see this too much, where apparently some people were saying that you shouldn't play Egbuka because his open score and open stats were pretty weak, and he's getting there on like long touchdowns. I remember week 4, you had the one where he's kind of covered by 2 guys. And he catches the ball between them and then runs for the touchdown. And people are like, that's super fluky. Like, he's not a good play. I guess my read on it is that he's got a very high ADOT, so he's getting targets way down the field. As you noted, Baker's slinging it, so that's been working out pretty good. I think he's a good enough player, and the environment is good enough that he's a strong fantasy play. The usage profile is volatile, though, if it's going to be based on those long touchdowns. So you probably will get a floor game at some point, and we haven't yet. And I think he's like a pretty good player. I don't think we're looking at somebody who's going to be like a Jamar Chase or like a JSN type receiver, but the environment, our talent, I should say, but the environment and the talent is good enough that he is a strong fantasy play.
Yeah, I mean, I think Baker is probably top 5 real life NFL QB right now in the league. Maybe he's 6, or maybe you make a case number 7, but he's up there among the very best, like for what you would want your fantasy receiver catching passes from. The other thing with Egbuka, like there's so much to unpack here. The first is like, oh, you can't play him because of the open score. Like, okay, just from the weighted targets per route run for Egbuka, like look at where he falls on this chart and just kind of cluster this cohort of guys that he's near. Like take this whole first quadrant, or the upper right quadrant, the best quadrant, where he's squarely in that, right? Let's just pretend that there's obviously volatility. The fantasy points per game, there's a lot of volatility there. The weighted targets per route run is going to be a little bit more sticky, right? So you say, of all these guys with about this weighted targets per route run, we see the low end is like the Brian Thomas level fantasy production. That's like outlier bad. And then Amon-Ra is like outlier good. And Egbuka is closer to outlier good than he is to the middle, which would be like a Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase or Michael Pittman level, right? But there's this thing with rookie players specifically, and not just rookie players, but any player where their situation is less solidified, like not a veteran coming into the same team he's been with for, the past 3 seasons, the same coaching staff, same quarterback. The more change and volatility and fragility there is around a player, the more this is going to be true. But it's that opportunity begets the player's ability to show off their talent and efficiency. And so you get the window open for that with Egbuka right away because of the Godwin. Godwin's inactive to start the season, and then you get the Evans injury right away. So Egbuka just immediately has this opportunity thrust upon him, right? And I feel like it's pretty well understood that for rookies, the thing that drives opportunity in the second half of the season is typically efficiency, right? You get these rookies that are out here being efficient on less snaps, and then that begets more opportunity. And then if they can continue that efficiency, it ends up compounding. It's like this self-fulfilling prophecy, or like it's a positive feedback loop where you get a guy who's good, he ends up with more opportunity, and he's probably developing at the same time, and he ends up being even better. And so that's what I think we're watching with Egbuka. And so you can, it doesn't have to be that hard, man. We thought the guy was good coming out. He comes out and he's playing good. And sure, Open Score might say he's not the very best receiver in the league.
The thing about Open Score is I'm not actually sure I understand what that's telling us that much. And I don't think other people do either. I think people see Open Score and say, good score, this guy gets open. Bad score, this guy does not get open. I really don't think we have enough information to make that determination. I think it comes down to what you're saying, where watching this guy earn targets at a decent clip, and we're watching. Let's take the information from that.
Yeah, I think it can just be a pretty simple, straightforward one where there's a good player and he's performing given the opportunity. You'll probably see that grow, And the one counterpoint to that is, well, his competition is going to increase here because Godwin's going to ramp up more, and we saw the little bit of pullback in Godwin. For example, Godwin's weighted targets per route run was north of 60, 70% on the last chart. I want to say it was close to 80%.
So I the only pushback I have on Egbuka is that I don't know where he has an opportunity for increased volume or increased opportunity, where he's already running 90 to 95% of routes.
Right.
He's already getting targets. He's overperforming with them. So there's the overperforming is the signal is probably that he's very good. I still think that maybe there's a game coming where he doesn't get 138 air yards and then converts that into 163 yards. There probably is a floor game coming, but he's getting the opportunity. But that I derailed your segue onto Chris Godwin, which I think is a good one. Which it's kind of bizarre where he went from 91% of routes to 79% of routes. He went from 10 targets to 4 targets. He went from a 15 A dot and 151 air yards to 2.8 A dot, 11 air yards. So not targeted down the field, and then not targeted. I'm having a hard time interpreting that kind of pullback in usage.
Yeah, I'm pulling up I wanted to look at the Chris Godwin coverage stuff here for this game. Let me grab this really quick. I just wanted to see if maybe
Don had a suggestion of like maybe the Seahawks focused. They focused on taking away.
That's what I'm looking at here. Let's see. Yeah, I mean it is pretty spread out. Like he each of his targets came against different defenders. He's got 2 targets against linebackers, 1 against free safety, and then 1 against Nick Emenwari. So yeah, not sure exactly how to parse that. I mean, I think I'm comfortable saying like, hey, it's the first 2 games back for this guy from injury. Like it's pretty small sample, and we saw such a strong role in the very first game back that I don't want to overreact to this game against a really good defense. Now, granted, the Bucs still were able to throw all over this really good defense, and Egbuka sure didn't seem to care. But yeah,
maybe there was a coverage focus on Godwin, though.
It could be a number of things. I think it's a really good buy window for Chris Godwin if you're in a league with trades. Like it's not often where you get it. Like hypothetically, let's say that.
So let me put it this way. In the big battle royale, Chris Godwin was 9% owned this week, or 9% drafted in the big battle royale. So like, and he went undrafted in 90% of drafts, and I hammered him. Obviously disappointed by that, but the message is we're going right back to the well this week.
Yeah, because I mean, let's just hypothetically say that Godwin ends up right around 60% weighted targets per route run, like enough to be considered in this cohort that lives in the upper right-hand quadrant of the chart, right? And so you'd expect fantasy points per game of somewhere between 13 to 20 with that level of weighted targets per route run, and especially with the efficiency that his quarterback is playing with right now. How often are like, when you look at these receivers here that are living in that range, like how often do you get a chance to acquire one of those guys for how cheaply you could probably acquire Chris Godwin right now? Like what would you have to pay for Garrett Wilson right now? Or what would you have to pay for, Devontae Adams or Drake London? So for me, the other guy that kind of falls into that cohort where I think is a good buy window is Chris Olave. Like just has another kind of ho-hum game, but less exciting than Godwin because he doesn't have as good a quarterback attached to him, but he's been consistent about how many targets he's earning. Not the greatest ADOT in the world, but still getting a decent amount of air yards to where he should be able to convert that into more fantasy points than he's actually getting. But yeah, Godwin
90 air yards a game.
Yeah,
so pretty good. So we covered the Bucs. We covered Olave. I kind of covered this already when I came on Cooper Rush, or I noted on Cooper Rush, but with them like going out of their way to hide Cooper Rush, they won't throw it. They won't throw it down the field, or they won't throw well. Like, can I still start Zay Flowers in my home league?
Oh God, I mean, probably not. You like, there would be circumstances where he'd be your best player to start, right? But if you have anyone that's close, no.
Do I play him over Travis Hunter?
No, not after. Man, here you want to.
That's
you want
pretty
a little
close,
bit of
right?
Yeah, it's close, but I mean, you want a spicy take. I think next season Travis Hunter's the wide receiver 1 in Jacksonville, and Brian Thomas is back to his role that we saw at LSU, where he is. Because what Brian Thomas is best at, that outside, like I feel like part of the growing pains for Brian Thomas has been that Liam Cohen is deploying him a little bit differently this season, where it's like, hey, I'm going to get you involved all over the field. And it's kind of like, oh, actually, I do this one thing like really good and the other stuff like not so much. But if you would let me do the stuff I do really good, I'd love that if we could get back to that. And I think that is it's kind of funny because there's so many times when we're like, oh gosh, could you imagine if they just like move this wide receiver around like queen chess piece, use them everywhere. And so often that's a great thing for a receiver. Brian Thomas really might just be like that kind of one-trick pony type receiver where maybe he is just best on the outside, like torching dudes and, operating really deep downfield. I think Travis Hunter is electric enough to where you could very much have a really good complementary role. They could play off each other really well. And after seeing what Hunter did when they tried to get him the ball more, like, my goodness, he had some electric plays. So I could see this developing to where Travis Hunter is being drafted ahead of Brian Thomas next season in best ball.
Yeah, that seems realistic for sure. That seems realistic for sure. Where, not to get too ball knowing, but Brian Thomas is kind of your X that you line up on the right side of the formation. He's getting your deep stuff. He's taking the top off the defense. You're not asking him to go over the middle where he might get an ouchie. But maybe he's still catching post routes and post corners and stuff like that.
You want a good Pokemon evolution tiers comp for Brian, or not for Brian Thomas, for Travis Hunter?
Sure.
Okay, right now, there's still room to evolve, of course. I don't want to sell Travis Hunter short. But the Charmander is Hollywood Brown. The Charmeleon is Travis Hunter. And the Charizard is Zay Flowers.
Man, you when you started that one with Hollywood Brown, I was like already out. I'm like, oh shit, he's gonna put Travis Hunter and Hollywood Brown in the same one. Shit. And I don't know. Like I feel like Zay and Travis Hunter are good comps where like they're both electric and yak. They both like can do down the field stuff. I do think Travis Hunter is probably a little bit of a unicorn in that like his ball skills are so good. They're so good.
The ball skills on the deep ball and double coverage was like that was chef's kiss. That was like, oh yeah, that's why this guy's different. Like he's just,
and then he's so good with the ball in his hands,
dude.
Like the yards after the catch, and you see stuff like that, and it's like, why aren't you making this?
This
like
should be easier. This should be easier.
You're just like pointing at it, like, why can't you make this work?
Yeah, no. The reason I brought up Hollywood Brown is if you watched, in that game, Hollywood Brown did stuff where it very much reminded me of Zay Flowers, where he makes a really good move. He gets the ball immediately after the catch, makes a really good move. And it reminds you like why we used to be excited about Hollywood Brown. We're like, oh yeah, this guy like did have some juice. The juice is, we're left with like a mostly juiced half of an orange at this point. Like it's already been squeezed, but like there's still like a little bit left there. But right now it's manifesting in that he is like in the Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard comparison between those guys. Like we're talking Hollywood Brown's all the way down to like level 3 Charmander. You just got this boy fresh from Professor Oak. He knows one move right now. But anyway, I do all of that was to kind of like archetype what Travis Hunter's ceiling could be. And I think we kind of got robbed of like the Zay Flowers ascension breakout here with the Lamar injury, because he really, one of the things that I feel
it was
like
incredible.
Yeah, I just have to share. Karain really nailed this summer. We were, doing ranks for these guys all summer, talking about ranges of outcomes. And the thing Karain kept coming back to on Zay Flowers, where I was pushing back, that it's like, gosh, I just, volume limited team, like it could just be really hard for him. And Karain's thing was, yeah, it might not matter that they're volume limited, because this could be like the CeeDee Lamb of this offense, where you saw this similar career arc with CeeDee Lamb, where first season is like good, second season there's progression, and it's not until the third season where you see this guy all of a sudden become that queen chess piece, like move him around everywhere, focal point of the offense. And that's what they were doing with Zay Flowers. Like, yeah, Mark Andrews was the I don't want to play with you anymore meme, where he's dropping Woody or whatever it is. And Zay Flowers was just getting everything. And I really think that if we still had a healthy Lamar, we might see that breakout manifesting more. So anyway, Flowers and Hunter, both, similar-ish enough archetypes. We're really excited to see both of them as the season progresses. Definitely thought that was a fun comparison to make, though.
Yeah, for sure. And so some of the other notes I had were Calvin Ridley. He was back up to 81% of routes. So you've seen that like flickering of life left. Ao Menard still led the team with 86%. It's kind of funny where like you have like kind of like consolidated routes for the team, but that team is so bad that it's not that meaningful right now. But I guess something to keep an eye out for is just these guys leading. They are leading the charge and receiving for their team.
Yeah. All right. I think we can move on to the next chart. I did have a really fun comparison here as we're leaving this one, though. Jameson Williams being right below Cooper Kupp is just chef's kiss for me. Man, Jameson Williams just so involved this season. So involved. I mean, imagine not drafting this guy at the 4-5 turn.
I'm honestly like, I'm trying to think through what might have happened, because like they clearly did intend to use him a lot more than they are, but then I wonder if they just got smoked so bad in that week 1 Green Bay game where like they were like, okay, this plan no good. They went back to the trash can and lifted up the old Ben Johnson plan and said, "Oh yeah, Amon Ra, yes."
I think it might even just be simpler than that, where it's the Lions think that they are being exactly true and consistent with what they said all offseason. He is more involved. He's running more routes. What are you talking about? He's not more involved. Jameson Williams is awesome for real life football for them, right? He's threatening the defense. Like, he is what's making space. You saw Sam Laporta getting all that catch and run shit this last week. You want to know why that happened? It's because Jameson Williams is there putting the fear of God in the safety, right? Like, he is stretching the zones out. Like, the reason there is so much green grass there is because Jameson Williams is doing what the Lions paid him a very large amount of money to go do. He is being awesome for real life football for them. And they just have to throw to him enough to keep defenses honest. And that is the unfortunate truth of what it is for fantasy. But yeah, I think it's just that simple, man.
I really do think that they intended to throw him more passes. Like the things that they were saying, the way they were saying it was like, oh, this guy's going to have a great year. And maybe they were just buttering him up for like being the wind sprints king.
I think another part of it too is like they know what kind of player they have, where this is just a sharp coaching staff where it's like the psychology of, hey, this is our, like, of all the guys that might do some stupid shit that could put us in jeopardy, harm the team, this is the guy. And so you know what you do for a player like that, like, we really need him bought in, like, we need the positive reinforcement. And you know what? It's a lot easier to not be putting up huge box scores when the team just spent the entire offseason, buttering you up and giving you a huge bag of money. Like, it's so much easier to be content if that is, your lot in life, compared to, I'm still waiting on my contract extension and they're just not getting me the ball as much, like, I think it's just like, hey, we know our personnel and he does very good things for us. And it's important that this player doesn't make dumb mistakes and remains bought in. But that was, that's enough. Jameson Williams was too expensive victory lapping from me. I didn't even need to go there. I was just doing it for funsies, but we can move to the next chart.
Yeah. So obviously we covered Iron Menor and Calvin Ridley. Did you the only other notes I had was kind of like on rookie watch. Was there anything else that you wanted to say about any of these guys here?
I mean, maybe
we don't have to.
Yeah, the only one is like I fully expect the Keenan Allen bubble to continue trending down and to the left. Maybe crowning Keenan Allen wide receiver one of the Chargers was a little premature. It turns out his box scores look much less impressive after he's not scoring a touchdown in every single week. The very, very difficult mental exercise of literally cover up the touchdown column just escaped many fantasy gamers. There are many such cases.
I don't know. The Charger stuff, I had a note where Herbert was just running for his life all game, where like his time to throw was low, his pressure to sack was high, so he's getting pressure, he's taking sacks. His ADOT was like a 4. Like that offense just like in general dysfunctional. Nobody's kind of like none of the receivers getting there in that environment, and even for players that we like, McConkey, I think you probably need Joe Alt to come back. I saw they did not put him on IR, which some fans are kind of taking as optimism that maybe he's not out the full 4 games. But I do think that the Chargers receivers, not like I'm not interested in any of them right now in this current.
So one piece of color to add to the Chargers receivers is they actually pretty much all should have had better games because there were multiple plays. There were 2 basically back to back. They got called back by terrible penalties on the Chargers. I think one was a hold and the other was a legal formation, but they were on the same. The 2 I'm thinking of specifically were on the same drive. They're in 2nd and long. It's like 2nd and 18, 2nd and 19. Herbert completes a pass. I think that one's to Keenan. Would have been, it was either like right at the sticks or like for first down. Gets called back. Then it's like 3rd and 20 something, like 28 or something ridiculous, and he converts that too, and then that gets called back. So that kills a drive. So not only does he lose like, almost 50 yards of passing there, but it also kills a drive, which looked like it was going to yield more passing yards. You also get the really bad QJ fumble, which like QJ ball skills are like, of all of the things that QJ has fixed, like he still hasn't fixed the ball skills. He still drops the ball and he still fumbles the ball. But so it's like, it's hard to go in there and be like, oh, if this had gone another way, if this glaring issue with this receiver wasn't an issue, like it would have been such a better game. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, like that is kind of his calling card of his problem. So I don't want to like go in and do revisionist history on like, oh, if he didn't fumble.
Yeah.
But then you also get the Lad McConkey punt return touchdown that gets called back. And so, obviously that's not a passing game play or anything, but I do think it speaks to the fact that like this Chargers team was just killing themselves in this game. Like so many penalties, really. I mean, shit.
The offensive line injuries, it is extremely detrimental though. Like
for sure. Yeah, we're in agreement there. Yeah.
Control way down, sacks way up. Like it like I get that there was some unlucky things, and maybe massively unlucky, but it is a much worse fantasy environment than the first 3 games.
Definitely agree with you there. It's just from penalties alone, you wiped out at least 15 fantasy points that you can directly account for, and then there should have been more. Most likely there were more coming if that drive doesn't die from the penalties. So it's like there's an easy outcome to see that's just like 2 penalties different, where all of a sudden there's 20 additional fantasy points spread out among the Chargers receivers, and all of a sudden it looks a whole lot better. So it's going to be worse than the first 3 weeks. Like inarguably it's going to be worse, but I don't want to overreact to how bad it looked this week. Cause I think that, I would hope that they can clean up the penalty stuff. I think this is a pretty well coached team. I think it's just the pains of
right. They're playing the Dolphins this week as well, which is like,
it's a good get right spot. Yep.
But
good question about Matthew Golden in the chat with how do we see him?
Golden bubble. Oh, I took that as a literal like a golden bubble. I'm like, what? I didn't understand that at first.
I don't think Christian Watson is going to be doing anything that'll be at all impactful to any Packers receiver other than maybe, Dontavion Wicks losing some routes because he's kind of like the lowest man on the totem pole.
I think you're right.
Well into November. Like, we're talking super bad knee injury that happened late last year. We're just now beginning the initial ramp up period. You got at least a month left before it's going to matter for other Packers receivers. And even then, Watson probably doesn't matter. So I think Golden's still a pretty strong target to acquire in redraft leagues right now. He's a good one coming off the bye too, because it's he hasn't had a big game yet. And then for whatever reason, off of a bye just feels like a time where people don't evaluate that in the way that they should, where it's off bye is good. This now means that I basically am stealing an extra game getting this player as long as I'm moving a player that hasn't had their bye yet, right? And I think people just kind of treat it like status quo for a player like Matthew Golden who hasn't had a big fantasy game yet. So that's one where I'm definitely interested in him going forward.
Yeah, his routes since the Jaden Reed injury, he's been averaging close to 80% routes. So he went from kind of tertiary, part-time-ish to borderline starter. Targets not quite there. I guess we hope that improves after the bye, where they decide to use him more. But definitely a good timing to go out and get Matthew Golden. So then, speaking of Golden. My last couple of notes here were just kind of rookie watch. So Isaac Tesla, he's up to 54% of routes, but other than his absolutely sick catches, he's not really earning targets. So I'm not terribly interested. And then I had a couple of other guys like Lane, Horton, Noel, Higgins. They're in terms of routes, they're all still in very tertiary in territory.
Yeah, we can move to the last chart to see him, but before you do that, Kendrick Bourne, just an interesting call. Basically, if I'm in a spot where I need a receiver to start this week, I would add Kendrick Bourne, and if I'm in a spot where I need receiver upside later in the season, potentially, I have a weaker receiver room where the threshold to become my wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 2 is not terribly high. I'd be really into trying to go get Juwan Jennings right now. Basically, there's going to be points to be scored in the San Francisco pass catcher room. Kittle still is not back. And then you've got the Pearsall injury. You've got the Jennings injury. Ayuk still, we haven't started to get the buzz around his practice window's open. So I think that there's a couple weeks of pretty strong value, to be one of the target leaders. Christian McCaffrey is going to be the target leader, but other than Christian McCaffrey, to be the target leader in a 49ers offense where I don't really care if the quarterback is Mac Jones or if it's Brock Purdy. Purdy is definitely better if he's fully healthy, but Mac Jones looks solid. I'm very, very happy to start. If Jennings is starting this week, I'm locking him in. I'm super happy to play that. And if Jennings is out, I'm very, very comfortable starting Kendrick Bourne again.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of noted that a lot of the rookies that we're waiting for breakouts on are we're still waiting. We're still on alert. One guy who I'm going to be particularly interested in this week is Luther Burden, coming off the bye. So pre-bye, he was about a 30% route rate. And I'm very curious to see where that lands with the post bye rookie bump. I'm hopeful we'll be paying attention to that. And then my last note is I see Xavier Worthy here on this chart. I don't think he's going to be on this chart for the year. Last night he had an 80% route rate, which was kind of interesting coming off the late in the week ankle injury. He did only have 42 yards. He did have 124 air yards, 9 targets, 14 ADOT. So pretty strong usage that did not get there. Did not quite get there. But very interesting Worthy usage nonetheless. Think that's probably a pretty good buy low point until especially until that. I'm talking about single week stuff in terms of buy low, but especially before Rashee Rice comes back in week 7.
Yeah, I had one player I wanted to pull up a stat on here. I believe, Josh Downs, target leader on the Colts. Target leader and was one yard shy of yards leader on the Colts here, outgained by Ashton Jeanty, superstar.
One thing is, so his targets and his routes are strong. He's still they're only playing him in the slot. Yeah. So I do worry if he's very game plan dependent on if they plan to use 2 tight ends, Josh Downs is not going to play much.
Yep.
But otherwise,
I
he's
agree.
going to smash.
Yeah, I agree with you that he's unfortunately blocked by his slot only designation, and they're real. It's not slot only like some guys where it's like you call them slot only, but they're not. They're out there doing other stuff. They're just majority slot. Josh Downs is really about as close to slot only as it gets.
Right. He if you pull up his snaps by position, so he'll get somewhere between 3 to 5 snaps out wide a game, and this is when you're talking about offenses playing 40 to 50 snaps. So it's truly slot only.
Yeah, his last few games, 28 slot snaps, 5 out wide, 35 slot snaps, 3 out wide, 22 slot snaps, 6 out wide. So yeah, he really is living in the slot. He is good though. He's very good. But yeah, sure. And Diggs being on this chart, we talked about Diggs earlier in the show, but I think it's someone where I think you just buy into you just hop on the moving train and see how long you can ride it, because the outcomes where Diggs just is not washed, he's still got it. This turns out to be a really fun season for him. Would it surprise you if Diggs finishes as a top 15 overall fantasy receiver by the end of the year, if it's in the good outcomes?
I mean, he's had 100 yards the past 2 games. If he continues on that kind of tear, then he certainly will be. That sounds so aggressive, but it is somewhat realistic. Is what
there's just the other thing is what's the competition here, man? Who's gonna take targets away from this guy? You're telling me we got to get the ball to Kayshon Boutte more, or we really, dude, the Patriots have
they tried that.
They fully buried Pop Douglas too. All the talk about Pop Douglas is the best guy with the ball in his hands on the team all off season. That went out the window extremely quick. So I think Diggs just has body bag Pop Douglas, which was really his strongest direct competition. And then your only threat to because predicated on Stephon Diggs is still good. Your only threat to hey, this doesn't run out as a super smash for Diggs is Kyle Williams is really good and gets on the field. But
That's not happening at this point.
We're reasonably confident that TreyVeyon Henderson is pretty good, right? Like, we have reason to believe that. And he's having trouble getting on the field with poor competition around him. So I think it's just wheels up for Steph Diggs at this point. I think I want to try and be early on this one. I mean, it's probably already a little late given the last two games were both so good. And this last one came at a prime time, super heavy narrative spot. So it might be that I'm giving you totally inactionable stuff here, but
no, I don't think so. I think people will still not be fully bought in on Diggs. So it's helpful to say it again for the folks in the back, because he's still only had a 64% route rate, and he's had 7. So week 1 was 70, 58, 55, 82% week 4, then 64 last week. So there's still a lot where people are like, I don't know. So I think it's still helpful to say it again, that hey, we could be looking at an outcome where we're getting a Diggs smash.
Yeah, I just want, how can I hitch my wagon to Drake Maye?
But I think that's it for us, right?
Yeah, I think that should do it. I think we set a record with the show, Drico, done well under 2 hours this week.
That's you can thank me for doing the show notes on this one. Keep this tight.
Well, I thank you all for joining us, and we will look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place.
See you next week, everybody.